You're the first. You're the first one in the chat. That's amazing. If you're still in here, I don't know, but I saw you on the chat. Hey, everybody. It's Curly. Yeah, it's my first real live stream. I'm going to give it just a couple minutes to see if people. Hey, awesome, Rupert. Can you hear me? Do I hear all right? Or do I sound all right? Is it a good level? Wicked. Escape Velocity is hosting. No use for anger. What up? Yeah, so if you guys could tell me how it sounds, awesome. Thank you, Root Boy. I appreciate that. Yeah. Guys, can you believe it? I can't believe it. It's here. It's the first stream. It's amazing. You guys are here early. You're amazing. Yeah. Oh shit. Where did you get pink guns? Those are awesome. Those are so awesome. No, you are. Okay. Those pink guns are amazing. Absolutely amazing. Love it. Okay. Also, that there's a lot I don't like about StreamYard, but I do like that I can just click on something and it'll go up. Why is that showing? Okay. All right. So yeah. Hey, there's John Tetley. What's up? Oh man, my count of who's watching is like way off. Apparently, according to StreamYard, there are 0 people watching right now, which is really entertaining. Hey, Jamie. Hey, Triple. Wow. Okay. So, hey, Lexi. So, let's see here. It is 7:02, and I'm just going to go ahead and like dive into the starting spiel. Hey, Pinche, how are you? And Ellis, all good to see you guys. I'm not going to do a man like deep though. I can't do a roll call. I don't even know what to call you. You're a crew, but I don't know what your name is. So, yeah. Okay. So anyway, welcome everybody. Hey, Benji. I'm so excited to be here. This is the first episode of my show, D&B Q&A. So if those acronyms are troubling for you, that's drum and bass, question and answer. What we're going to be doing here is talking to people, talking to cool people, having conversations, talking about music. The conversation will definitely start there, but who knows where it'll go. I want it to be loose. I want to have a good time. And I definitely want you guys to be involved as well. I'm going to do my best to keep an eye on the chat. But given that it is my first stream and I have a guest, I might not be great at that. If there is a video or audio like big problem, tag me in the chat. I have it in front of me, so I will be able to see it. I'm going to have some timers coming up to tell you about following Escape Velocity Official, where you can find Sensenet on the web. And yeah, so you'll have all of that information. And, let's just get started. I'm super excited. And you know what? I love you guys. I love you guys so much. Like, you have, so many of you have really been supportive during this process. I can't possibly name you all, but just know that my heart is very full with love for all of you. So, yeah. Okay. Let's do my little brief intro that I wrote. So, I am super excited to have Sensenet here. I can't believe that she actually said, "Sure, I'll go on your interview show," with no idea whether I would be a good interviewer or not. So I'm super excited to have her. Sensenet streams with her partner, A1 Voodoo, at Escape Velocity Official, who just got shouted out, so I don't need to do it. She is an accomplished DJ, producer, and streamer, and she's working on completely renovating a tour bus. We'll talk more about that and lots of other things. But let's go ahead and bring her in. So,
Hi.
Sensenet, hi.
Wow,
It's good
like
to
who
see you
is that
again.
intro for? Like, oh my goodness.
It is for you. It is
Thank
all
you, thank
facts,
you.
all
Thank
facts that are
you.
available. Yeah, yeah. So, um, gosh, we made a cardinal mistake of interviewing, which is that we talked for like 20 minutes before the stream started. So,
Oh, we're loosening each other up. That's what we were doing.
exactly. Oh, that reminds me. I should thank anyone that's here from Escape Velocity Officials page, since that is
Yes.
hosting us there. This is normally tell them about what you normally do on your
Yeah, so we
Tuesdays.
started, we added a third night on Tuesday nights, and
Mhm,
A1 and myself trade off the nights. And so the fourth Tuesday of the month is the Sensenet Detour. And that's
mhm.
basically sort of a chance for me to have once a month that I'm just going to stream anything and everything I feel like. I think like last week we
Nice,
just chatted a whole bunch and went down the internet looking at random things. And when Curly
nice.
approached me about doing this interview, it was going to be on Tuesday nights. I'm like, wait a second, if we can coordinate this with my Sensenet detour, we're I'll just make that the show. So it's something totally unorthodox that like the Sensenet detour episode 2 isn't on our channel, but that's
Yeah,
sort of what the Sensenet detour is about. You just never know what you're going to get. So
yeah.
worked out
And the
perfect. Thanks for having us.
Well, it worked out perfect for me too. If you subscribe to that, what a nice thing for the universe to kind of, throw together. So,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Um, so, okay, so let's do like the, standard boring, well, not boring, but the standard, normal background questions. So, where were you born?
I
Don't
was
give me the city, like
born
give me a state. Like I don't want too much personal information out
sure.
there about you.
I was born in South Florida.
All
So
right.
I
All
grew
right.
up in Florida, but I always like to preface that it was South Florida, which is a very different part of the state than the rest of the state.
Okay.
So it was very metropolitan, very progressive.
Mhm.
I grew up only, 30 minutes to North Miami, 45 minutes
Mhm.
an hour to South Beach. So, and right next to
Nice.
Fort Lauderdale, 10 minutes from the beaches.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was quite a very, very metropolitan upbringing.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, tell everybody where you're living now. I know a little bit about it, but everyone in the chat might not know.
I look at T-Bell about your mother's maiden name, your date of birth, let's go over social. Hey guys.
Oh,
Um,
T-Bone. That's why I don't ask for this stuff. The world is a weird place, man. Okay,
as
so where
as
are you now?
much as Florida, South Florida is a pretty cool place with the beaches and all that stuff going on. The city just got to be a little bit much. I've lived all around Florida. I lived in Tampa for the last. I lived in Tampa probably about 8 or 10 years. That's where A1 and I met. But it got to be too much. It was just the city was starting to just, get claustrophobic and the
Yeah.
heat. I mean, it was
Ugh.
always hot. I mean, I enjoy being outside and it got to a point where I mean, you could not go outside. I would have to
Yeah.
look at the
Yeah.
temperature. Like if it was an event that was going to be outside and there wasn't any cover or inside, I'm
Yeah.
like, I can't go. So we decided to move north
You're
about
right.
5,
Right.
6 years ago, and, through a series of, "Hey, a job opening is here, and a friend has a place you can stay here," the universe just pointed us and dropped us into, Eastern North Carolina, and we are by the Blue Ridge Mountains now, and I freaking love it. Like, I love the weather, I love the scenery, it's
Oh
gorgeous, the
yeah.
air quality is amazing. Oh, yeah, I think North
Yeah.
Carolina has the most amount of trees per capita of, like, any state, so it's like living in, like, a giant,
Wow.
like, HEPA filter. It's just yeah, it's
Ugh,
fantastic.
that's awesome. That's amazing.
Yes,
So
Appalachian Crew represent.
yeah. Um, so like, what are you up to right now? Like, what just a general. Like, what do you got going on? I know you're doing Twitch. You're
Great.
working. Whatever you
Yeah.
want to tell us.
Twitch takes up a good chunk of the time. I'm still doing the 9 to 5 grind, so that's taking up my days during the week, and
Yeah.
then on any free time that we have, it's Twitch,
Hmm.
working on the bus and renovating
Yeah.
the bus, uh, working on music,
Yeah.
and working on art. So,
Wow.
yeah,
So
we pretty much downtime for us is
uh
working on other things.
right, right. Oh
Yeah.
man, tell me about art. What do you do for art? Like,
So,
what's your medium?
I started getting back into it. I know we were talking about this a little bit earlier, how there was stuff that
Mhm.
you were doing years ago and you
Right,
somehow now found you sort of
right,
come full circle to it. So I
right,
actually
right.
went to school for art. My bachelor's is in fine art.
Awesome.
Um, so I've worked with a variety of media throughout the years. When I say a variety, I mean we had to learn like woodworking in college. We learned how to weld in college. I mean, yeah, paints and charcoals and pastels and wood and metal and
Wow.
ceramics like so I just anything with my hands. I love working with my
Yeah,
hands.
yeah.
And with Twitch, it sort of reopened this creative box that's sort of been a little bit closed because I was getting so
Mhm.
wrapped up in like the rat race in the corporate world. And
Yeah.
Twitch, when we started it, it was this opportunity to actually do something creative with the possibility of it also financially supporting. And
Right, right.
so it's really opened up that desire to really do creative things now, knowing that there's like an avenue to release it on. So I've done a little bit of painting. The drawing behind me is actually an illustration that you can
Did
now
you
buy
do
an
that?
art print of. That's my logo. Yes, I made that.
Yeah, yeah. I knew it was your
Um,
logo, but that's wow, that's really
Thank
impressive.
you. I have that as an art print now up on Design by Humans. I haven't officially released it yet, but in the background, I am working on some other artwork for some other art prints and shirts. And yeah,
Nice.
next year we'll probably be getting a 3D printer. There's a whole like jewelry line I want to play around with. So yeah, you asked about
Jewelry's
medium,
fun.
and it's sort of like anything and everything, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Jewelry is really fun. I've done that.
Yeah, I wanna do
And
lots of, like, hexagon jewelry and circuit, like, just like on the logo, how it has those designs, like bracelets
right.
like that and earrings like that and
Yeah,
stuff,
yeah.
so
Oh, that's awesome. That's so awesome. So, okay, so when you were growing up, was music a big deal in your house, or was it just
It
there?
was, it was. I definitely music has been in my DNA. My uncle is actually a concert pianist, and he
Wow.
has his own, he teaches piano now, so he teaches out of his house, and he teaches students. He actually got his, master's from the Boston Conservatory of Music, and he spent a lot of time in New
Wow.
York, and then, so growing up and my parents love music. Like my mom was like a really big singer. Like she likes to say back I think she was in her early 20s. They had like some audition for like Radio City Music Hall. She didn't get it, but she's like we literally like showed up and before we got off the elevator, they're like, "All right, girls, like give us your thing." And like that was it. Like that was her big like
Wow.
audition which they didn't make.
Wow.
So my mom loved singing. So there's always just I mean, there's always music playing and the radio was always on and I still have some of my parents' vinyl records and it was important for my parents to try to give me a well-rounded education as well.
Okay.
So, they're sending me to a good school, but when I was about
Mhm,
5 or 6, they're like, "Well, we want to start her on music. We want her to at
mhm,
least learn one music instrument." And so since
mhm.
my uncle played piano and him and I are only 13 years apart. So when
Oh,
I'm
wow.
5, he's 18. So it was a very close like mentor and role model for me. So I'm like, "Well, I want to play piano. My uncle's playing piano." So they started me off at piano lessons when I was 6 and then it just took off from there. I ended up in middle school I wanted to be in the band. There's not really a good piano that's in a band. I played like the vibraphone and the xylophone a little bit, but if I
Nice.
wanted to really be more of like the ensemble, my best friend at
Yeah.
the time played flute and also piano.
Okay.
So I took a summer with the band director and took a summer of flute lessons. And so then I could play flute in the band and yeah, then I wanted to
Wow.
play like bass, and so my mom like sent me to guitar lessons for a few months. So I picked up a little bit of that, and yeah, like
Awesome.
I wanna
I
play it all, and I took cello for, like, a year through, like, a magnet program at a public school, like
yeah, I wanted to talk to you about that because I saw a cello and I I have a thing for the cello, man. I have
I
like a
love
love
it.
affair with the cello. There's something about it that just gets into your soul. So,
Yeah,
I mean,
so beautiful.
could you play a cello if there was one in front of you
Not
or
now. I don't remember
yeah.
any of my fingering. I no. No, I remember a lot of chords on the guitar, but obviously that's different. Yeah, the cello, no, it would probably if I were to try to play it now, it would sound like the dying cat or something.
So,
I use
how ha
VSTs now if I want a cello.
yeah. As someone that doesn't have any classical music training, I have
Mhm.
wondered about this. Do you feel like your classical training, is, like, especially beneficial to you as you produce electronic music?
I think it is now, and I say now because I think in the past, that classical training kept me in a box.
Ah,
And, I grew up, I was horrible at theory. I was terrible. I'd always get like really bad grades on my theory tests. Like if when we do
mhm,
theory competitions, I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. So I always thought that like, well, I don't know theory that well and I can't
mhm.
compose like my friends who can write theory are composing. I'm not writing
Right,
concertos and
right.
sonatas, minuets, like I don't know how to do that. So I'd
Right.
literally convince myself that I'm not a composer. And I was fine with that.
Mhm.
I'm a performer. I take the
Right.
sheet music, I read it, I play it, I perform it, I put my soul into it. Cool.
Right.
I'm not a composer. That's not my thing.
Mhm.
But I always loved electronic music and jazz
Yeah.
music. And so there's always this disconnect of what I was trained in and what my skill set was, but what I
Right.
actually wanted to do. So it wasn't until a lot later in life that I started saying, you know what, like I really like this electronic music thing. I'm going to start
Mhm.
messing with it. And only
Mhm.
once I sort of took that serious dive into my DJing and producing, probably
Right.
about, say, 5 years ago,
Mhm.
it wasn't until I actually sat down in Ableton and, after being in GarageBand and having that
Mhm.
experience and being in a lot of
Mhm.
graphic design programs, which are similar to Ableton, and then living with someone who knows Ableton and being able to ask some
Right.
questions like right across the room, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can write music. So at first, that
Yes.
classical upbringing was preventing me from really discovering, this whole other side of writing music. But now that I'm writing music electronically, now I can bring the classical into that, and I think it
Mhm.
definitely helps me out. Not so much in theory, because I'm not sitting
Mhm.
there saying like, "Oh, I have to play an A diminished seventh after there's E flat chord." No, I don't do that. I just, "Does that sound good? Okay, yeah, it sounds good." But
Yeah.
as far as like structure and pacing and
Mhm.
knowledge of tempos and things like that has really helped out.
Awesome. Okay, so we talked about this a little bit, when we were talking before the stream started, but you've got me thinking about it again. So, you were talking about how your classical training maybe sort of kept you in a box because you had this idea of you had
Oh, no, did
learned
the
this
whole
idea.
stream freeze? Oh,
So,
you froze a little bit. Can you repeat that? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. You talked about how your training had kind of kept you in a box for a while. The story you were telling yourself was that you couldn't compose. That theory wasn't your thing.
Mm.
Um, and we were talking about perfectionism. Do you feel like perfectionism has had an impact on your music too? Like in sort of maybe a similar way? Like, do you think that's connected at all?
I think it does. I was lucky though that when I really started getting into music production, I was older.
Yeah.
So, my maturity was a little bit more tempered. I had lived with my perfectionism for longer and had learned how to manage it.
Hmm.
But, when I was back in GarageBand and I wrote my first official track, I guess you could say back in like '04,
Right.
it didn't turn out at all like
Hmm.
what I was trying to make.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
something I've learned throughout this creative process, whether it's musically or something that I'm working on artistically, like abstract art, I may
Hmm.
have an idea in my head of where I want to go, but then when it comes out of me, it sort of has this like life of its own.
Yeah.
And I just
Yeah.
accept that, if this is where my brain and my soul is taking me, I'm just gonna let it take me there. So I don't try to
Mhm.
be like, well, no, I didn't want to write that there. I
Right.
have to write it like this. I'm just like, just let it go. If this is
Yeah.
where the song wants to go, what direction it's going in, fine. And
Yeah.
I've actually
Yeah.
gotten to a point where I've written songs that just something just wasn't right with it, and
Mhm.
I've stripped them all the way back down just to one part and like
Mhm.
rebuilt it back up with more just sort of like an open mind, I guess you could say, and let it just
Yeah.
sort of naturally fall into place.
Yeah. Yeah. Keeping it flexibility is important in every aspect of life, but certainly I think creatively as well. Okay, so how, when, whatever did you find electronic music? What was your experience with that?
Um, it probably had to have been early 80s.
Mhm,
So when I was, 5, 6, 7, just starting to maybe like really watch like TV,
mhm,
MTV was a big influence on me.
mhm.
Um, MTV is where I saw a lot of the electronic music for the first time,
Mhm.
namely Rocket by Herbie Hancock. That song just basically blew my child's mind. I'm like, "What is this? I must know what this is." And then my dad had found, a cassette of Mars Pump Up the Volume that he was using on, like, some promotional video as, like,
Wow.
background music, and I'm like, "Yo, give me that cassette." I, like, wore out, like, both sides of that cassette, and
Nice.
before when my parents first gave me piano lessons at 6, they wanted to make sure that it was something I was really gonna gravitate to before we spent the money on a piano, so they got
Right.
me a synth. They got me a
Mhm.
little keyboard, so I had a Casio. So I sort of started off right away on synthesizers.
Nice, nice.
And I was just always drawn toward it. I mean, I would listen to, like, soundtracks and songs and try to, like, recreate them, like, on
Mhm.
my Casio keyboard and and whatnot. So, yeah,
That's
so
amazing.
pretty early on, basically
Yeah.
as soon as I can remember having, like, musical knowledge, it was
Wow.
there.
That's awesome. That's so awesome. So, were you a raver? Did that experience, excuse me, hitting the mic. Did that experience happen for you and draw you in maybe a little more to
I
dance
got to
music?
experience it on, like, a small level. I
Mhm.
went to a private school. Everyone was very, very, like, traditional and conservative, and, when I went to college, I ended up going to a small college, and, there were parties, but they weren't, like, huge parties, like
Right.
proper raves.
Right, right.
I did go to a couple raves, and I did get to have that experience in college,
Mhm.
and I loved it, but honestly, to me, what I remember more about college was going to the house parties that had the
Yeah.
DJs, that
Yeah,
had the
yeah.
music that I can't hear anywhere else, and listening to
Right.
that, and so that
Yeah.
was yeah, it was amazing.
Yeah. I kinda miss the house party, Well, I mean, everybody's missing house parties in 2020, but, like, uh,
Right?
there's just that vibe, when it's like the decks are kind of open and everyone sort of flows through and, yeah,
Yeah.
people play stuff that they might never play in another setting.
Mhm. Yeah, like,
Um,
the raves were fun, don't get me wrong, it was a
oh,
very
yeah.
cool time, and, um there was a lot to be said about when you do the correct recreational drugs, it can be a very positive and beneficial experience,
Yes.
to ease
Yes.
some stress out of what's going on in life and whatnot. But
Yeah.
I was never going to them for I was going to them for the music in general, but
Right.
it was more about the experience I was going to
Mhm.
be having. So that's why I guess
Mhm.
the house parties had a lot more of an impact on me musically, because the house parties I was listening to the music. I want to know
Right.
what the music was. So
Right.
yeah.
Right. Yeah. I remember those days. "What are you
Mhm.
playing? What's that record? What's it called? Who's it by?" Uh,
I see
so
it.
right? Can you play this one again?
Yeah.
So yeah, I was that obnoxious girl for sure. So how did you find drum and bass then, like specifically?
I basically I like to say I took a musical journey. So being from Florida,
Mhm.
once I got to be an adult and out of college, what was around was Florida breaks.
Yeah.
So the Florida breakbeat scene was huge. Also in Tampa. So a lot of the DJs, a lot was breakbeats, DJ Icy, DJ Mondo, Baby Ann, they were all regulars at like the nightclubs we were at. So it
Wow.
started off with breakbeats. And then, the house crowds would overlap. So then I
Mhm.
started getting in a little bit like the house crowd and got into some like deep house and like dirty
Mhm.
Dutch house, but still like even my house I like grimy. Like my break beats I
Yeah.
always like grimy. And
Mhm.
then oh, I forgot to go back in my teens, it was industrial. In teens
Yeah.
it was like industrial goth, like
Mhm.
hardcore industrial stuff. Um Frontline Assembly, Download, Skinny Puppy, um who else? my mind's blank, but KMFDM. So it was
Yeah.
like industrial and then break beats and then house and then progressive house. I didn't really go down the trance route too much. Trance was
Mhm.
always too like bright for me, I guess you could say.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
still like the
yeah.
darker stuff. So, but I knew some friends. I went out to some trance nights, and then my girlfriend Amanda, who I met around this time, she was spinning drum and bass, and I'd actually heard some drum and bass tracks in college,
Mhm.
but I was so on an island with music that I didn't even realize the tracks I heard were drum and bass. I just thought these tracks were they existed in their own. That track was so cool because it sounded like this, not
Right.
knowing like there was just a whole world. I was like so close to drum and bass, and I just
Mhm.
died, blew past it.
So close.
So, yeah, so I'd heard some of it, but it really wasn't until, my girlfriend started taking me out to the club nights, and that probably would have been 2010?
Mhm.
Maybe 2011 or so, around
Mhm.
there. Yeah, so maybe 2010, 2011, and, I mean, everything just changed. I mean, she took me to, like, my first official drum and bass night, and it was unlike any club night I'd ever been to. It was
Yes.
unlike any music I'd ever heard of for the entire night, and just the vibes and the energy, and everyone was so chill and, like, relaxed and down to earth, and I'm like, "Wow, this is a totally new clubbing experience that I'm used to," and it was just it was amazing, and it's had me ever since.
That's fantastic. I love that. I love to hear that. So, um, I'm curious, was the drum and bass scene very big there in Tampa, or was it
Um,
sort of, you know,
I think it's
specialized?
sort of like most of the scenes around the country. You
Mhm.
know, like if we get like 100 people throughout the night in the
Mhm.
door, like we're doing good, you know?
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
did have the advantage of being right next to Orlando, so
Mhm.
we were able to combine crews, the Tampa Orlando cruise, and so we were able
Nice.
to put on some really big shows, and have a lot of people come out, bring in
Yeah.
some big acts. It's definitely
Nice.
bigger than the scene in Asheville, which there is even a drum and bass scene in Asheville. I mean, gosh, we've had Goldie out here, and
Wow.
oh my god, my mind's going blank. I think that's the last. Is that the last show? Oh, we had Dom and Roland, Goldie.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm thinking about the flyers. I'm trying to picture the flyers in my head. We brought out Root Operator ourselves one time.
Nice.
Um, yeah, and then you're from where are you at right now? You said you're in Texas,
Yeah, I live in Austin right now, but
and did they have drum and bass there?
um, I got into drum and bass in Houston, actually.
Oh,
And
okay.
the reason I asked you about the size of the scene is because for us, like my friends that were throwing parties back in 95, if 50 people came, that was like amazing.
Yeah.
And, at that time, drum and bass was like the redheaded stepchild of electronic music. We were like the
Mhm.
underground of the underground. But that really forged bonds, with us. I think it was kind of like a
Mhm.
foxhole mentality, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
we're here and we're fighting for this music that we love and we're going to
Oh,
make
yeah.
people like it, damn it. And it worked. Like eventually it
Yeah,
worked.
there's definitely like I always say, if you're an American drum
Mhm.
and bass lover. And I mean like the people that are going out to the shows, whether you're DJing, throwing the
Mhm.
gig, producing the music, or going out to show support, every
Mhm.
single one of us is like a drum and bass warrior. You
Yes.
have to be because drum and bass does not just appear to you in
Yeah.
America. You
Yeah.
have to go find it, and more
Yep.
often than not, we're throwing shows because nobody else is. Like, you have to make this shit happen in America.
Yeah. Yeah.
Every single person is important to this scene in America, and we're all, like, so passionate about it because we have to keep it going. If we don't
Yeah.
do it, no one else is. Like, we all have to, like,
Right.
hold that torch.
Right. Well, like back then, I really learned that being a supporter was an important role too. That, you
Mhm.
know, even if you weren't the DJ or the promoter, by being a supporter, you are part of the experience, the success of it. And so I've always, you know, I've always loved being a supporter. It's always been very important to me. But even when I was a DJ, I love the people that come out. Like that the love that they give, the shared experience, you know, that you get to have when you're playing music you love and other people are loving it too.
Yeah.
Yeah, my friends in Houston actually from back then, they do a monthly now simply because they want to see these DJs.
Yeah.
They're they're like they're like, "I have the money, I'm not gonna spend it if I can't afford to lose it, and I wanna see Makoto. So we're gonna bring Makoto out and have
Yep.
an incredible night," and yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that's
being
how we brought Seba out to, when I was back in Tampa. Seba came out twice,
oh,
I think, that I know of, and my girlfriend Amanda was involved in the second one, and she basically footed almost, like, the whole bill for his airfare and everything because 'cause we're like,
wow.
"We wanna see him. If I gotta put
Yeah,
money for it, F it, it's
yeah.
happening."
Nice, very nice, very nice.
Mm.
So, how did you get into producing then?
I think going back to how I'd always wanted to make music and
Mhm,
thinking that I couldn't write because I wasn't
mhm,
going down the traditional classical paths.
right.
And, you know, being around so many DJs and producers, it was just sort of this multi-year sort of buildup of
Mhm,
knowledge and things that I was absorbing. And, you know, back when I was 19, I was home from college on summer break, and my boyfriend at the time was not happy that I had to go back home. He was being a real whatever about it. And he was razzing me about, like, being lazy over the summer and not getting a job. And I'm like, I'll get a job over the summer. I'll show you. And so I ended up getting a job at a nightclub. I'm like, guess what? I'm working at a nightclub. He's like, "Rawr." So I was the door girl. So I started working. I was just a door girl summer job, but I got to see all the DJs and I got to see
mhm,
them roll in before the start of the club night. And I was noticing like there weren't ever any females.
mhm,
It was always all dudes. The club
right.
owners were dudes and the DJs were dudes and like everything was guys. And I'm like, that's it. I'm going to be a female DJ only because I don't see any. There needs to be more females. I'm going to make it happen. That was always my thing.
Yes,
If I ever saw like where there wasn't any females, I'm like, okay, that's what I want to do. So
yeah,
I decided at 19, I'm going to be a female DJ. But being that, I was home from college and my parents wanted me to, get that degree in white picket fence. It was like,
mm,
okay, well, that dream sort of has to go to the side. Let me go off to
right,
college and do this
right,
corporate thing for the next 20 years of my life. Um, so it finally came full circle. Things got a little bit more settled in my life. There's a bunch of things that happened between 20 and 35. Oof, can't even get
uh,
into all of it.
yeah,
Um, but I met Amon Voodoo, and he's been such a big supporter and my rock. And like every year has gotten better that I've been with him. And so I'm like, you know what? I think I'm at a point in my life where the job is steady, my relationship is solid, there's no drama going on,
mhm,
and I've had this dream of being a DJ for literally at that point probably like 17 years. And at the time, I think I was 37, maybe 36, 37 or 38.
wow,
And I was like, you know what? If I don't make this thing happen, it's not going to happen. So
right,
I told myself, I have to decide right now. Is this just going to be something that I'm going to say, oh, yeah, I wish I would have been a DJ? Or
mhm,
am I just gonna make it effing happen? Because now
yes,
is the time. I'm gonna be
yes,
40 in a few years and the shit needs to go down if it's gonna go down. And so I
right,
started practicing every single Friday night. I started DJing. I wasn't giving up on it. And the more I did it, the more I got back from it. And the back of my mind, I'm like, it's not just enough to DJ. I
mhm,
also want to produce.
right,
So, let me get, my basics of DJing under my belt and
mhm,
understand as a DJ how these songs work, how they mix,
right,
what's going to work, so then I can produce. And now
mhm,
I'm a producer also from a DJ level. So it's
right,
nice to be able to write songs knowing how they're going to be used in a mix and knowing how DJs play them. So that was
yes,
always the intent, let me
yes,
do this DJ thing. But the goal was always I want to also be a producer. So.
awesome, awesome. That's so cool. I love that. I'm also a big fan of um, where there are no well, I just found myself in places where there were no women, and like I it never occurred to me that I wouldn't be a DJ from the very beginning.
Oh,
I was like, if my friends can do it, I'll do it when I'm ready. And, hey, awesome. So how long then have you been producing? So you did the DJ thing for a while.
Probably since, let's see, my first album or my first single was out in 20, oh God, was it 2018? But I'd actually written it like a year before.
Mhm,
And I'd been probably like 2016. I'd say
mhm,
2016
mhm,
is when I started really getting serious and learning Ableton. And
mhm,
then I had a few tracks on the shelf, and then by the time
mhm,
the release was out, that was like the two that were the most finished at that point. But
mhm,
I had
mhm.
created them like a year earlier before they were actually released. So I'd say yeah,
Awesome.
probably 2016.
That's awesome. Okay, so getting back to sort of the beginning of your musical experience, which, as I now know, was very early. You talked about your uncle being an influence on
Hmm.
you to start piano. What were
Yeah.
some of your other influences? And even, we could talk just when you were young, but even your early influences when you started DJing or, listening to like drum and bass.
Um, let's see here. I was always into bass. I remember being
Hmm.
a teenager and seeing female bassists.
Hmm.
Gosh, I can't name. I think White Zombie had
Hmm.
female bassists. There was another group. I listened to Primus a lot, even though that wasn't a female bassist. I mean, that was Les
Hmm.
Claypool, you know.
Right,
Um,
right,
so, but I really like seeing females in sort of these, non-traditional roles.
right.
Um, and then unfortunately, I know there were female DJs when I was, in my early 20s. Like obviously there was
Hmm.
Baby Ann, there was Rap who was overseas.
Hmm.
But for whatever reason, they just weren't in my sphere of influence.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
I didn't really have any strong female mentors when it came
Mhm,
to DJing until way, way later in the game.
mhm.
Now obviously, Rap is a mentor to me, and Mantra is a mentor to me, and
Right.
Jin and Sweet Pea and all those gals. But I sort of hoofed it alone
Yeah,
for a
yeah,
little while.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, okay, so how did you guys end up in North Carolina?
Well, we had decided we wanted to leave Florida,
Mhm,
and we wanted to sort of expand our universe, and we
mhm,
wanted to we actually were going to take 2 years and
mhm,
visit a few different places around the country to see maybe
mhm,
where we want to move to.
mhm,
And I remember around that time Clearwater was working at a nonprofit zoo,
mhm,
but his department was going to be downsizing, and he had enough mastering work and label work and things on the side that he's like, you know what, I can go back to working for myself. I'm gonna, leave the job on good terms and go back to
mhm,
focusing on the labels and the music work.
mhm,
And the Monday after he had left his job, the first day, we got a call from our landlord. Now, keep in mind, he's been renting this house for 15 years at this point.
Oh,
15
wow.
years he's been in this house. I mean, at first
Mm.
he was living in a different room, and it was actually the Rabbit in the Moon studio, and Dave Christopher lived there. So we were actually sleeping in Dave Christopher's old bedroom. Like all the Orlex from the Rabbit in the Moon studio, we still have. We're keeping it. It's good mojo. Um,
That's awesome.
so we get a call from the landlord, and she's like, "Hey, I'm getting older. My health is in bad shape. I need to sell my house, and I need to move into the house you're in with my son so he can take care of me. You guys have been great tenants, so I'm giving you 3 months." We were like,
Whoa.
"Oh my god!" And so literally, our 2-year plan moved to 2 months.
Right.
2 months. Like, we did not know where we were going to go to move to. And the saving grace was my girlfriend Amanda, the one that did the drum and bass. She had made
Mhm,
the move up here like a couple years prior.
mhm,
And they were renting a house that had a garage with an above apartment, and her mother was staying in it. But she called me and she's like, my mom decided she's moving back to whichever state she came from. And so we now have like a vacant efficiency. Like, if you guys need to come up here. And around the same time, her boyfriend, who works at the place that I work at now, we're still coworkers, he was
mhm,
like, "Hey, the job I work at is always growing. So like, just like I'll give your resume to them. So I'm like,
Wow.
okay. So he gave my resume to them and I did a video interview. And I remember when I got on the call, they were like, so do you know like what you're even applying to? I'm like, I have no idea. Just I have no clue. Tell me what it is. I'll let you know if I can do it, right? So they ended up hiring me, and
Wow.
then Amanda's mom moved out, so we were able to stay in the efficiency for 3 months until we found another rental. So yeah, like I said, everything just like aligned and we made this move in 2 months to a whole new state and it was crazy.
Wow, yeah, talk about life throwing you a curveball, but it
Yeah,
sounds
that
like
was nuts.
it sounds like maybe the curveball pushed you exactly where you guys needed to
Yeah, like
needed to
I
be.
don't know if the landlord had not, kicked us out. It's sort of one of those things. Would it be 5
Right,
years later and we're still deciding where do we want to move to, you know? I mean, I
right.
was pretty dead set on it. I mean, for years I'd been I want to get out of Florida. Like even when I
Mhm.
was dating, within like one or two dates, I was like, "So, have you thought about leaving Florida?" And like if the one guy was like, "Oh no, I'm always gonna stay here. I love it. You know, my mom's really sick. I'm gonna stay here, take care of her." I'm like, "Oh, that's awesome, but okay, next." You know, because like
Yeah.
I knew like I did not I did not want to stay here for long.
That's hilarious. Okay, let's talk about the bus. So, how on earth did this bus thing get started?
So the bus is also related to us moving. Um, like you said, he'd been renting for 15 years and I've been through home ownership before.
Mhm.
I've purchased two houses back in my 20s and then the Great Recession hit. So I got to go through a divorce, a bankruptcy and foreclosures all by the time I was 29. Yay.
Mm,
Uh, so, but I always knew the benefit of having a house and
right.
investment properties and things like that. And so when I got with Clearwater, he's like, "Oh, I've been renting for 15 years." I'm like, "Well, we should buy, right?" So we looked around Tampa, but I mean, the market was crazy. Things were flying off the shelf like in hours. And I'm like,
Wow.
"This is ridiculous." I remember we looked at a house one time and there was a line. You had to stand in line and like realtors were letting people in for like 10 minutes at a time to walk around the house and leave and then you're supposed to make a
Wow.
decision if you want to like buy this house. It was nuts. I'm
Wow.
like, "You know what? I don't like this process. We're out." So
Yeah.
then the move came up and we had to move. So
Mhm.
we moved to the efficiency and we're like, well, the next time we move, let's have it be in a house.
Right.
And we were hoping that because we were moving sort of more out to like the country and the mountains, that, land and living was going to be less than it was in
Right.
Florida, but it really wasn't because we were so close to Asheville. So we were
Right.
still suffering from you just inflated home prices. And we started another home search. We looked at so many homes. We had a contract on two. Oh no, sorry, we had offers in on two or three. We got a contract in on one, but it was at the max of our budget. And I
Mhm.
realized, we want to travel. Part of leaving
Right.
Florida was also to explore. So
Right.
we knew we always wanted to travel. And I'm like, well, if we get this house, it needed some work done. What money are we going to have to work on it because all of the money is going to go into the mortgage, and what
Right.
money are we going to have to travel? Like we're not going to
Right.
be able to take vacations or do anything. We're going to be house poor. So we backed out of the contract and we're like, okay, like we couldn't find a house in Florida. We can't find a house up here in North Carolina that we like what's going on, right? Everything just seemed to be
Right.
too expensive.
Right.
And Clearwater one day was like, you know, what if we just get an RV? That way we can live and travel at the same time. And my reaction was, hell no. No. I'm like, I grew up with an RV. My parents had an RV. Those things are tiny. I'm like, I am not living in an RV. No. But his dad currently like lives in an RV,
Mhm.
and my parents I did grow up with one, so I was a little bit familiar with them.
Mhm.
And it took me a couple weeks, and he sort of let me come to the decision on my own, but he was trying to
Mhm.
make, like, well, look at the financial benefits of it. Look at, like the minimalist quality of it because we're trying to, pay down our debts and get rid of our
Right.
possessions and blah blah blah.
Right.
And so it took me a few weeks, but I once I got over my, like, knee-jerk reaction, I was like, this is really not such a bad idea. You know, we can't
Mhm.
find a house that we like, that we can afford,
Mhm.
and we want to travel. And I like doing alternative things. I don't like
Right.
doing things that are the norm. So we actually started researching it and to see
Mhm.
if other people had done it. And to our
Right.
surprise, there's millions of people that are doing this. And I was like, oh, this is not such a crazy idea after all. And basically, everything or problem we're going to have, other people have had. So, like,
Mhm.
there's an amazing support network of forums and people and other travelers, and I'm like, "Whoa, this is totally a thing. There's people totally doing this, and this is their lifestyle, and this is what they're doing." So, I'm like, "Okay, you know what? Let's change gears, and we're gonna now try to figure out what type of bus we wanna buy and what we need,"
Mhm.
and that started the bus journey. At the same time, it started our debt-free journey. We paid off all of
Nice.
our debts in a little over 2 years.
Wow.
And so we
Congratulations.
Thank you. And everyone can do it. Everyone can do it. There's a secret sauce. Um, and so then we got the bus last year. I think it was it's been almost 2 years. 2020, 2019. Yeah, we took
Mhm.
possession of the bus in 2019. And so we've been working on the bus and trying to get it done. And now the focus is finishing up the bus, but when we turned around, we're like, "Oh shoot, we've been renting for 5 years." We're getting into
Yeah.
our 6th year of renting, and
Mhm.
financially, we don't have to rent. It's just a matter of we haven't been able to find, like, a place to buy or a home base,
Right.
but now that the bus is taking longer than we anticipated to renovate, which, as we all know, all projects do, we decided that we signed 1 more lease here, which is up
Mhm.
next December 1st, but,
Mhm.
like, it's done. We set a
Right.
goal for ourselves. We're not renting. We are
Mhm.
buying something next year, and we're trying to get the bus livable to the bare minimum.
Mhm.
So if we do happen to find just vacant land, we can just
Yeah.
put the bus on it and live in it. It's not
Mhm.
to say we won't buy a piece of property that maybe has, like, a tiny cabin on it, but
Mhm.
I don't know. I don't know what we're gonna find. So, but if we're gonna find something, we're buying something for the end of
Yes.
2022 to have as, like, our
Awesome.
headquarters while we finish the bus and then get on the road.
Okay, so what is the end game then for the bus?
The end game is we were gonna be traveling, North America in it.
Mhm.
And so our goal with the bus is we want to go all over Canada and North America and visit all of you guys. The cities that have no drum and bass scene or no music scene whatsoever are going to be like
Mhm.
our top priority cities. So we
Mhm.
really want to try to come out to like the D&B deserts, if you will,
Mhm.
and throw like a stream or an event, have a party, and just really get to like meet everyone that we've met. Which has been
Mhm.
so amazing. I mean, we met so many awesome people that we're just going to start this tour and see how it goes. And
Yeah.
then the other side of it too, what I was telling you about, it's not just about music.
Mhm.
But animal activism is really huge for us. And, you know, I donate and volunteer at a lot of animal sanctuaries. And so we're going to be taking, just like we're going to find places where all of you are, we're going to have on our map where all the animal sanctuaries are. And so we'll be able
Nice.
to go to their farms and their lands and live in our bus while we like volunteer for them and help them out and do co-streams and things like that. So
Yeah.
that's the end game with the bus. And then once we're done with the traveling, we'll go back to building our HQ, and which is going to be like totally off grid. We're
Right.
planning to do a total off grid as much as possible system.
Nice. Nice. Except for streaming, right?
Yes, well, off grid except for internet. We'll be able to supply everything our own except for internet. We'll have our own
Yeah.
power, we'll have our own water, we'll have our own, you know, waste disposals in our gardens,
Mhm.
but yes,
Mhm.
we still need the internet. Which Starlink, this guy right here,
Uh-huh.
that's gonna be the only way we can do it, because we
Yeah.
have found amazing pieces of property out in the country, and
Right.
there's no internet.
Yeah.
Like, I
Yeah.
can't even work from home if I still have my corporate job, so,
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
but Starlink looks like he said he wants to be rolled out to the rest of America by, like, I think, like, February. So, we're looking to buy probably, like, in fall of next year, so
Mhm.
there's a good chance that Starlink
Yes.
could be active, and then we can buy wherever the F we want. We
Yes. Okay, since that you froze up a little bit, so you were saying you could buy wherever you want.
Yes, and we won't be strapped down to being close to a city center, which,
Right.
obviously is higher cost and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So, um, I you guys were streaming on Twitch before 2020, right?
Yes. Mhm.
Okay. So, what has that been like for you to go from, I wasn't here before 2020. So, like, what has it been like for you to go, just the difference, let's say, between what probably before March 2020 and after
Mhm.
March 2020?
I think the biggest difference for us, fortunately, we did not see a big drop in our numbers. We
Mhm.
were totally anticipating either because people have been laid off and dealing with the stress of COVID, or just
Mhm.
because Twitch was going to be oversaturated, that we're
Right.
like, okay, we're probably going to like slide back, get ready for it. Luckily, we didn't. And what we found is yes, there are a lot more drum and bass and DJs on Twitch. However, that is a strength. There's
Mhm.
strength in
Mhm.
numbers and there's strength in
Yeah.
community. And so for us, the community has grown. And there's so
Mhm.
many people that we probably never would have met had they not, been faced with this decision. Well, let me
Mhm.
get on streaming, let me get on Twitch, let me see if I can do this.
Right.
And so for the drum and bass community, there's just been so much more people at it, and I love it. So
Mhm.
it's been great. I think the community has grown even bigger, and there's such variety out there now. And yeah, so it's been really cool, interesting watching it for us.
Awesome. Okay, so how did you guys find out about Twitch? Like, were you
So this is a funny story. I hadn't really known about Twitch really at all. I don't even think I knew about Twitch. And So, Lexi, you know how you like those little pink gun emotes? That's by Queen Bee. Now, Queen
Yeah.
Bee is a partnered streamer, and she is actually A1's ex-girlfriend from before we were dating. They were in a
Mhm.
long-term relationship, before I snagged him. And no, oh my god, that sounded bad. They were broken up. I'm not a homewrecker. Oh my god, that sounds terrible. No, no, he was free and clear, okay? He was free and clear, okay? Game
Yes,
on.
yes. You snapped him up.
But yeah, I snapped him up before somebody else could. He
Yeah,
was put
yeah.
back on the shelf and like the dust didn't collect and like I grabbed him.
Yeah.
Um, but they left very amicably. They still talk to this day. And how did I forget? I think she told us about it. I think she was about to get partner, and
Mhm.
she had been seeing a lot of success with it on her channel, and she was like, "Oh my god, you guys, you have to get on Twitch." And we're like,
Mhm.
why? What's it about? And so I started watching some of her stream and started like seeing what it was about. And I'm like, wow, this is interesting. So I can sort of stream my own content. I can be as creative as I want to be. I'd have an
Mhm.
outlet to do some cool things like, you know what? Hmm, let's give this a go. And 2 years was our benchmark. We're like,
Mhm.
because it doesn't happen overnight
Right,
unless there's either
right.
some crazy like famous person or I have some like insane stream.
Mhm.
It's you have to grow it. And so we thought it'd be
Mhm.
realistic to know if this is going to do something that we do a 2-year run before we
Right.
decided to call it quits or whatever.
Mhm.
Um, and it's been great. We in 2018 we started and we were still doing a lot of live gigs at that time. And by the time 2019 rolled around, we're like, we're no longer pushing for the live gigs. We
Mhm.
like our streaming
Mhm.
scene better. We were getting more support from the community. We're getting more support
Mhm.
financially. We have full control
Wow.
over it. There's not as many headaches as there are with live gigs, and yeah,
Yeah,
those are
yeah.
so stressful, especially if you're throwing the events or if like yeah.
Mhm.
Anyway, so
Yeah, yeah.
and so in 2019, even my website, you'll see like, hey, like we're putting a focus on our stream for 2019, and
Mhm.
we're not doing live gigs unless it's something really big that's going to like pull
Mhm.
us away from our stream channel. So we were sort of ready for this thing to happen in 2020 when it did happen. Our focus
Mhm.
was already towards, we like doing the streaming thing. We're going to keep doing it. We prefer it over live gigging at this stage in the game. And
Mhm.
yeah, it just keeps on continuing. And then we just added, some new content in October, and we'll just keep doing it.
Yeah, yeah. So, what has the like, I know for me it's a big deal, but I want to talk you. What has the experience of being involved in like the drum and bass community in particular on Twitch been like for you? Like,
Oh, it's been
you know.
amazing. It has been fantastic. It is very similar to my experiences in the IRL drum-based community, and I'm
Mhm.
so fortunate that the online community is mirroring the same sentiments I felt when I'd go out to live gigs, and I even have even more of a bigger community now because in
Mhm.
IRL, it's usually just your crew, it's your city crew,
Right.
which
Right. Right.
yeah, you might get 50 to 100 people out, but, like, the really core people, usually, like, 10, 15, 20 of you, 10 maybe that are, like, really keeping it going.
Right.
So, but on
Right.
Twitch, it's just the community is so big and it's international, and it's the support and everything has been fantastic. I mean, it has inspired me to do more, it's pushed me to do more, like, yeah, we would not be where we are today without the Twitch community. I absolutely love it.
That's so great. I have goosebumps listening to you talk about that because I really can relate to that. Well, my next question was going to be about how Twitch had impacted you artistically, but it sounds
Mhm.
like from what you said, you've already, you've noticed a change there. Do you want to
Oh,
talk
yeah.
any more about that?
It's and this is what I always stress to people that are watching our shows and people that support, like, I am not lying when, like, we can't do this without you. To me, it's a very symbiotic relationship, a
Hmm.
lot some of the songs that I've written, some of the artwork that I've come up with, it's all from things that happened on stream or feedback I've gotten while on stream or topics that have come up in Discord discussions, and it's this beautiful back and forth relationship of ideas and creativity and exchanges of information and personalities. And it's like feeding my creative brain, like, it's like I'm like Cookie Monster with like everyone on Twitch, like, ah, give me
Yeah,
more,
yeah,
like,
that's
so yeah,
awesome.
it's incredible.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's amazing. Um, so let's talk. I'm going to skip some of this stuff for now, but uh, obviously 2020 has been, you know, insane for all of us. I don't
Mhm.
think any of us anticipated something like this happening in our lifetime. What we're experiencing is absolutely unprecedented. So you already talked about what you think about that the influx of DJs has been fantastic,
Mhm.
for you. But do you think that what's happening on Twitch now will have an impact when things go back to normal, or when live clubs start being a viable option again? Do you think Twitch will impact that at all?
Um, there's 2 things that come to mind. One, I think there would definitely be a percentage of streamers who poof.
Hmm.
Once they have their main source of income back, we won't see them as much. But I mean, the amount of people or the amount of DJs that actually make a living off of just live gigging is not that significant.
Right.
So I think a lot of the DJs who are still on Twitch right now are
Hmm.
I assume they're gonna stay. Like,
Hmm.
even if they were post-COVID streamers, um,
Hmm.
if they have had any experience like we've had, I wouldn't
Hmm.
wanna leave it. I would
Yeah.
use it to
Yeah.
supplement if I'm gonna be going back and doing IRL gigs and things like that. The other thing I think about, and this is something that I thought it was an idea I had a year ago, but apparently I've talked to other people, I think you too, Curly, we've all had this idea
Hmm.
that there should be, like, a combination of, like, streaming and IRL.
Hmm.
Like, before COVID happened, probably, like, a year ago or so, I
Hmm.
was gonna propose at one of the local, bars that we do drum and bass nights if we could come and do a drum and bass night, but also a Twitch stream night. So
Right.
it
Right.
would be a live gig for people who were there, but we'd also be streaming. So
Hmm.
and we did that when we would have live gigs, we would stream whenever possible if we had internet connection and permission from the artists,
Hmm.
but it was sort of separate, because we would just have the
Hmm.
camera set up and they'd be watching, we couldn't really interact, and so I had this idea that we wanted to do an actual proper, like, Twitch IRL stream event where, like, we would
Hmm.
have a computer set up, I made, like, a screen name that people could log into, and, like, everyone could chat, like, at the bar with people online, and we could all see what's
Wow.
going on, and I would have, like, a section roped off that would be, like, in the camera view, So if
Mhm.
people didn't wanna be on stream, they could just, like,
Right.
not go across, like, the ropes, but if they wanted to, like, party and be on stream and say hi, they could get, like, in the, like, this camera area or whatever. So I think it'd be really cool to see some type of hybrid like that
Uh-huh.
happen because it's like Twitch has opened up an international audience and,
Mhm.
IRL gigs are local. So
Right.
it's I still want to include everyone. So it'd be awesome
Mhm.
if we can start doing, more of
Mhm.
these, co-streams of streaming while at live gigs and still being able to interact with people who aren't there in person.
Right. Right. So, so for me as a viewer, one of the things that's been incredible to me is the level of interaction that as a viewer I get with the DJ, but also that I get with the other streamers.
Mhm.
And like I wonder, will people miss that when they start going out again? So like for you, if you were doing live gigs again, let's say the bus was operational, you're going out, you're live gigging for people. Is that something that you would miss? Like, that sort of instant connection with your audience something that has been, well, tell me what's that's been like for you.
We definitely miss it, and that's why we stopped doing live gigging in 2019 and focused on the streaming. Um, yeah, it's hard to explain, but after we had been streaming a year and we went out to an IRL gig, it was weird. It's like we
Mhm.
just first of all, we're only doing a 1-hour set.
Right,
Most of us are used to doing these 4, 6-hour streams. So we're back
right,
to 1 hour, which is like that,
right,
especially when there's 2 of us.
right.
So we're up there, we only have an hour, we're not talking on the mic, we're
Mhm,
not chatting,
mhm,
we're just playing. I mean, there's
mhm,
like a stage and like, walls and whatever in front of us in the crowd, like, they're so far away
mhm,
and I don't know, there was something really missing for me with that. I
mhm,
wanted to say, "Hey, this is one of my favorite tracks I'm playing," or "Hey
mhm.
guys, check this one, it's coming out next month." There's just like
Yeah.
so much stuff I wanted to share with everyone and it just it felt disconnected.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah.
um so yeah, so we definitely miss it, and that's one of the reasons that we definitely prefer, the DJ streams and events like how we have them now.
Mhm.
So I hope, that when, we do get back to like IRL, there can be some more of that. I mean, certainly not every show is going to be like that,
Right.
but we're at a point right now where you know, Twitch has actually helped us bump up our booking fee as well. Because
Uh-huh.
if someone's gonna book us on a night that we stream, that's
Mhm.
basically a working night for us. Well,
Right.
it's gonna be worth our while because you're basically
Right.
robbing our followers of a night and
Right.
we're not gonna be getting our donations and bits like we usually get. And it's it's sort of I don't know, it's just it's different.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
yeah, we definitely like the interaction. I do miss
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm hoping that other DJs and, even big name DJs have that's a new experience, and I'm hoping that they're getting that same kind of enjoyment, out of it. And so maybe they will stick around at least periodically,
I
when all
think I think
this
you can definitely
ends.
tell who are gonna be the ones to stick around because when you go into certain streams
Mhm.
and f you can tell a lot of the DJs that are, used to traveling and stuff because there's no interaction. They'll just
Mhm.
get up, "DJ."
Mhm.
Cool, nothing wrong with that, but on
Mhm.
Twitch, it's a little weird when a
Mhm.
streamer
Yeah.
is not interacting with you at all.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And DJs like that are missing out on what Twitch is
Yes.
about, and they're missing
Yes.
out on a big part of what the community is, so,
Right.
I would highly encourage them to, get on the mic, or show your face or catch up and
Mhm.
chat, when you have a
Yeah.
mix that's gonna go for a little while or something. Um,
Yeah.
so I think they'll definitely, be going back to the live gigs and doing the standard,
Mhm.
1-hour sets. It's
Mhm.
definitely especially if that's been their MO for decades and that's how they've
Right.
been, making their money and that's the scene that they grew up in. I've
Right.
sort of developed my DJ persona and producing career at the same time we've been building up Twitch. So they're very, like, intertwined now.
Right, right, right. Yeah, uh, I before El Hornet took a break, I watched he was the first DJ that I watched on Twitch. I had no idea there were DJs on Twitch, and
Oh, wow.
it took like 3 months of listening to him, or 4 months even, before I found out there was this whole other world of DJs. Yeah, yeah, it's crazy. Like, I've only been this explosion happened for me like a little over 2 months ago, which
Wow.
is crazy to think about. But
That's
one of the
wild.
things that one of the things that he talked about was that there are DJs that come on Twitch and try and do the same thing that they did when they were out at clubs, and
Right.
how he was like, it doesn't work and they're missing out
Yeah.
because, he even said for him, one of the things that he really loved about streaming was he gets to talk to people. He can play any music he wants. He can
Mhm.
talk to people about that music while he's playing it. And yeah, I mean, I think it's such a if you're willing to grab it, there's a whole new world of experience, as a performer and as a viewer that can open up
Mhm.
for you. And yeah, I mean,
And lots of and it with Twitch too, with it being so interactive, and this is talking about the DJ specifically,
mhm,
I mean, there is interaction at an IRL gig, but it's typically with the other DJs you're performing with, and it's all happening backstage or in a green room. I mean,
right,
there is a lot of talking about the tunes and talking about your tracks and talking about when things are coming out and, "Oh, you gotta check this
right,
person out, check that person out." But it's all just the people performing and
right,
backstage.
right,
So, a lot of the conversations now that we have with our viewers
hmm
is no longer restricted to just, like, a select group,
right,
we get to have these green room conversations with everyone
yeah,
who's
yeah, yeah.
yeah, I love that part.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, like, you get to talk to the DJ while they're working, which
Mhm.
would just be absurd to do,
Right?
while
I know,
someone was on
that
the decks in a live setting,
I
you
know,
know.
like, things that are like a faux pas in, like, IRL, it's like, "Bring it on,"
Yeah.
on
Yeah,
stream.
it's an advantage. Yeah. Um so
"Oh, hi, Stitch Jones.
oh,
Hi."
Stitch. Yeah, you know what? Let's look at the chat for a while. Let's see if they've said anything or asked any questions. I did see something go by that Carla was talking about how
"Hi,
for
Jordan."
her, that for her, she doesn't want to go out to clubs anymore. That, like, and I get that. Like, I've done my time at clubs, um, and like after being in Twitch, my mind like has romanticized, I think, the idea of being like physically collectively with people
Mhm,
experiencing music. But I think maybe the allure of that might might fade eventually, and I will miss the things that Twitch allows,
mhm.
as far as interaction. So okay, let's see. That was just me talking. So let's see.
Yeah, hi everyone. John, Beers and Beats, saw from the Annex, reacting to
React,
ASL. I saw
yeah.
that, man. ASL.
Yeah. Cycloptimus Prime, thank you. And yes,
Oh,
I'm
it's like
sorry.
Optimus Prime. Hey, girl.
Yeah, one of the coolest usernames on Twitch
I know.
for
I love it.
sure.
Love it.
Um, I'm sorry I didn't get you your specific invitation, but yeah, as you can imagine, time ran away from me today as I was getting ready. From the Annex is here. Thank you so much for being here from the Annex. He is actually going to be my guest next week, so I'm really looking forward to that. Um, Okay, anybody have any questions? Like anything that we haven't covered? I'm scrolling up and I'm not seeing anything right now.
Another Soleil. Hey, Soleil and
Oh
Carla.
yeah, secret structures. Oh man, Burner. It is so late where you are right now. I can't believe you're here. Yeah, Burner is one of my favorite streams. Man, like Deeps. Hi, how are you,
Hi,
Deep?
Nikki.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay,
my
so
days.
No Use for Anger has a question, and his question is, "What is your favorite jungle track?" So
Oh,
I
that's not
yeah.
fair.
Yeah, I'm gonna let you off the hook a little bit and modify that and say,
Oh,
what is a jungle track that has been, like, particularly influential for you?
um, now I'm like, do we mean like classic jungle, contemporary jungle, like what
Whatever you
decade?
whatever you want, whatever you want.
Um, oh, I can think of a couple coming to my head now. Let's no, that one's not really jungle. Um, oh man, I think one pops into my head, but it's not necessarily like my favorite of all time.
Right,
But I mean,
right.
Undercover Agent, oh gosh, I mean,
Yeah.
that one's freaking awesome. That one's just fun and rowdy, and yeah,
Mhm.
that one's a blast. That one's absolutely a
Yes.
blast. Um, oh god, there's so many.
I
Um,
know.
This Is Love, is that Essence of Aura? It's on Moving Shadow. Um, oh
Yeah.
god, um, NB and oh, A1, you know it. What's the Natural Born Killers, the Natural Born Killers track. Who does that one? Oh my god, that one, I freaking love that one.
Yeah. Let's see, did
Yeah, who
he,
is that? Natural Born Killer Atomic Dog, there
Atomic
we go.
Dog.
Atomic
Alright.
Dog, Natural Born Killers. I that track, I love that track because to me it has sort of a classical structure to it, where
Mhm.
it has 2 different distinct sections of the song. I mean, not just a breakdown. I mean, it goes
Mhm.
into an entire, like, second portion, and a lot of
Yeah.
classical music will do that. Like, for instance, a, a sonata is typically in 3 movements, and you have
Mhm.
your first movement, which is gonna be, like, the main melody, and then you have your second movement, which is usually, like, soft and gentle, and then your third movement is, like, the climax where you reprise the main melody,
Mhm.
the soloist usually has their solo, and then it ends in, like, a big, like, giant climactic ending.
Right.
So, yeah, I think Atomic Dog has or Natural Born Killers has that in it.
Okay, so Man Like Deep has a good question here too, and I keep forgetting that I have to click these things to get them to come up. But okay, here it is. So his question is, "What's the best night you've ever played?" And again, I'm just going to say one of because trying to pick
Do you
one
mean, like
is probably difficult. Like played out,
yeah, do
like
you
out
mean
at a club or
like
something.
IRL? An IRL.
Yeah.
The
Yes.
best
Yes.
Well, let me think
It's a
here.
lot of pressure.
Well, there's been a few, so I'm trying to I mean, the most recent one that comes to mind, well, wait, hold on. Give me a second here. I think there's 2, and I have to say 2 because there's a reason, and Noise for Anger knows the reason for the second one. Um, the first one was when we got to go back to Tampa, and oh, actually, there was that one too. Okay, there were 2 times in Tampa. One was Orlando, sorry. The first time I got to play in Orlando, and the first time I got to come back to Tampa and play as a DJ, because people knew
Mhm.
me as a performer, and they knew me in the scene, but they hadn't seen me as a
Mhm.
DJ yet. So it was
Mhm.
really great to come back to Tampa, and, we actually got to open for Spin Scott, and
Mhm.
so that was super awesome, and Spin Scott, obviously, big jungle guy, and I got to play Splash Babylon as our ending track, and normally, you wouldn't end with that. You're the opening DJ, like, what are you
Right.
doing? Don't, like, end with a track like that, right? But because Spin Scott is, like, so on this level, he was mixing into that track. He was playing live over it, so it was just this, like,
Wow.
awesome transition that just went perfectly into, like, what he was doing, and he was really awesome and
Nice.
great, so that and it was great to come back to basically at that point, like, my hometown and be like, "Hey, I'm this new person now. I'm now behind the
Yeah.
decks," that was
Yes.
awesome. I got to do, like, my first signature on, like, a poster. I'm like, "Oh my god," it was so
Wow.
cool.
Oh,
Um,
that's awesome.
it was so much fun, and then, another time was when the first time I got to play in Orlando, and we got to open for Logistics, another amazing awesome guy, and so that was really cool, like, looking out, like, in the crowd, and it was, like, totally full, and being able
Wow.
to open for him and meet him and talk to him. And then the most recent one that sticks out in my mind as a best event was the last IRL gig we had, which was actually last December. We got to go
Mhm.
back to Florida, and we played a 25-year anniversary show for Hallucination Records, and it was their, Hallucination for Christmas. Everything is, like,
Mhm.
Nightmare Before Christmas themed, so I got to, like,
Nice.
do total cosplaying, DJing that, and that I would say that was, and oh, we got to meet everyone. We met people, like, from our channel. Some of them live locally, some of them came in from out of town. They got to see the
Wow.
bus. It was this amazing, like, 2-day event, and the only reason it didn't pick, like, the number 1 spot is because the thing we were talking about with IRL gigs, you can't always play what you want.
Mhm. Mhm.
We were under a contractual obligation to play a certain way because of certain artists that were on after us, and it
Mm.
definitely put a damper in
Yeah.
our set,
Yeah.
it put a damper in the vibes, so that was a little bit
Yeah.
disappointing, and we decided after that, we're never gonna buy to that. We're gonna have an hour rider
Right.
contractually. We're not doing anything. We're
Right.
not playing any differently, so that, yeah, that's the only reason that gig wasn't, like, my best ever. How we've been able to play exactly what we want to play and how we usually play on stream,
Mhm.
oh, hands down, that would've been my
Yeah.
most favorite one because but again, we got to our, like, actual, like, Twitch friends were there in IRL, and it was this awesome, like, blending of worlds coming together, and it was really fun.
That's fantastic. Okay, so this question is going to be hard. It's hard hitting, and I apologize in advance. It's very controversial. This man has been asking this question at every chat stream I've ever been
Oh.
in. What is your favorite dinosaur? Beers and Beats demands to know.
Ooh, see, I know what I should say. I love birds, and so I should say, like, a pterodactyl because my parrot passed away, but I love birds, and I call them my little, like, tiny, like, feathered dinosaurs that I have in my house. But
Yes, yes.
if I had to say my favorite one, though, it's gotta be the
Mhm.
velociraptor.
I like that answer. I like that answer.
Or the little guy, like, oh, I don't think I can do with my mic right here, but the little, like,
The ruffle. Yeah.
he's like, "Ooh," and then yeah,
Yes.
like that guy,
Yeah.
he's pretty cool. I like his, like,
Yeah.
surprise attack, that one's really good. But the
Yes.
velociraptors are pretty dope.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to satisfy the women in the chat and the men that like to color their hair. What hair color do you use, and do you make your own costumes?
Hair color. So I've been trying to find some vegan hair products, and the ones, where is it? I think I'm currently using Arctic Fox right now. However, I read some less than amazing things about the owner of Arctic Fox. And so, yeah, you can go down a whole deep rabbit hole in a
Yeah.
Reddit post and all
Yeah.
this stuff. So I'm not sure if I'm gonna, once I finish out my bottles of Arctic Fox, I'm not sure if I'm gonna be going back to them. There I've been using some Manic Panic. Manic Panic has always been a vegan.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I'm still relying heavily a lot of Manic Panic right now. But yeah, the hair right now is a combination of Arctic Fox and Manic Panic.
Mhm.
And if you have dark hair, keep in mind you will have to lighten it. I do
Mhm.
have to bleach
Mhm.
my hair, but make sure
Yeah.
you only bleach the roots. Do
Yeah.
not bleach other parts of your hair because you'll end up burning it off. Yeah, I
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
layers that I did not intend to have layers with, so careful. And costumes. My costumes are a combination of, I source outfits out online and then I'll either manipulate them myself or I'll just, like, mishmash a bunch of stuff together. I do have a sewing machine. I have sewed some stuff in the past, but it's sort of like there's only so much time and energy I
Right.
have
Right.
to put into stuff. But I mean, this top right now, this came like this.
Right. Right.
So,
Right.
um but I did at one point, I'd sewed some L wire into this section right here, and so there's
Nice.
one stream where, like, it was all glowing and things like that. So I'll do it's
Nice.
sort of like I guess I do mixed media with costumes.
Yeah. Yeah. So is cosplay a big deal for you? Do you do a lot of that?
I love
Or
it.
did
Any
you do a lot before all of this?
Halloween was always my favorite holiday. I love, 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 love dressing up. My background is also in theater. I did a ton of theater. I used to like acting as like a kid. I had like a national commercial when I was 6 or something.
Nice.
My mom actually took me out of acting as a kid because she didn't like the scene.
Mhm.
She didn't like all the stage moms. She didn't like sort of seeing what the environment was like, and I did
Mhm.
not have a say in it. I was sort of too young, and I always wondered as I got a little older, I'm like, "Things seem to be going really well for my acting career, mom. Like, what happened? It just, like,
Yeah,
disappeared." And she's like, "Yeah, I took you out of it." I'm like, "Oh,
yeah,
okay." But I always did theater in high school and throughout college, and so just the whole story, costume, makeup thing is a huge part, and I love doing it. We it turns out we're doing like a theme stream once a year. We did Blade Runner last year, we did Cyberpunk
Mhm.
this year. I would
Nice.
love to do those quarterly. I just don't have the time. I
Yeah,
just don't have the
yeah.
time. I mean, we gave ourselves only about 6 weeks
Mhm.
to prep for our Cyberpunk show, and it was not enough between working full time and everything else. We came sliding in on no sleep, and I don't even know how that stream happened. Like, it was insane.
Oh, that's crazy. Okay, so, band like Deep, that's a good question. If you had to pick one drum and bass artist to remix one of your tunes, who would it be?
Ah, well, Airstrike was the first one who already did one, so I can't choose him because he already did one because he would
Mhm.
definitely be a pick. Um, I would love to work with a female drum and bass artist.
Yeah.
I think Mantra would be amazing to work on a remix with. Um, Jin would be really cool,
Mhm. Mhm.
to do a remix for, or to remix one of my things.
Mhm.
Musically, oh gosh, musically, oh man, repertoire. Ricky Law, man. Ricky Law, I love his work. Yeah, I like his style. I love everything they're doing. So yeah, if Ricky was like, "Hey, we wanna do a remix of this," I'd be like, "Oh my god." I'd be so excited.
Amazing. Okay, so so that kind of leads to another question that I had, which is what what do you find most exciting about drum and bass right now? Like musically.
I feel like drum and bass is actually going through another renaissance, Like, in the late '90s, early 2000s, we saw
Mhm.
it progressing, it was getting experimental, we had, like, the jungle and drum and bass offshoots start happening, and all the subgenres started happening, and I think for a little while, it was pretty much just, like, drum and bass. Like, it sort of
Right.
settled into it was liquid or drum and bass, but,
Mhm.
like, there's so much subgenres that have been, like, bubbling to the surface, and the most exciting one for me now that we've been watching for probably the last, I don't know, like, 5 years or so is contemporary jungle. It's
Mhm.
it's coming back full circle, but in a way that, we're recreating a lot of these classic sounds, but not
Yeah.
copying it. It's still new, but I think
Mhm.
it's not so much we're trying to recreate the past, we're just trying to add something back that had sort of gone missing from it through all the experimentation. So
Yeah.
I think drum and bass is in a way after, at 25, 30 years is maturing just as we would
Mhm.
in our 30s.
Mhm.
We've dated this person, we dated that person, we tried this out, we tried that out,
Mhm.
but now
Mhm.
like it's maturing into this beautiful musical genre that just has something for everybody. I mean, there's
Yeah.
so many different kinds of drum and bass out there, but I
Yes.
absolutely love that like the vocals are coming back and the jazz is coming back and the funk is coming back to it and the 10-minute long tracks are coming back to it. Like, I'm really excited about that. Really
Yeah.
excited.
Yeah. Um, so, that said, I think leads into the question of where do you think it's headed? Where do you think the music is headed, basically, from now?
Well, obviously, contemporary jungle is picking up steam. It's been going on for a few years now, but I think that's starting to get more popular.
Mhm,
Um, I think sort of the genres where they're at now, like you have like your festival drum and bass, and I think that's pretty much always going to stay at that high energy, high BPM level. That's
mhm,
just everyone's settling into that. Um, I don't know, it's hard to say. I think we're gonna be in a little bit of a growth period right now, but yeah, I wonder if there's even a new subgenre that's gonna come out.
Yeah.
I'm sure someone can think of something because I mean, you never know.
Yeah. Well, you and I were talking before the stream started about how 2020 has really um, it's it's provided a lot of opportunities for us to focus on things that maybe we wanted to, but just didn't feel like we had the time, or maybe we didn't make it a priority before. Um, I'm wondering, do you think we'll see new producers coming up after this that maybe finally just really knuckled down?
I think we will. I know there's a lot of people that have written a ton of music this year with their time off,
Mhm.
and I mean, we already see it. I cannot keep up with all the tracks and the drum and bass music that comes out now, and I can't keep up with all the names either. I mean,
Right.
Repertoire was a prime example. They did their inaugural Streetlight compilation, which I was so honored to be on. Oh my god, I love them. And their whole point was, hey, we want to showcase some lesser known producers that you may not
Mhm.
have heard about because there's so many of us now. And so they put out like an open call to submit music and tunes and I find people on Bandcamp just
Mhm.
randomly trying to find other
Mhm.
tracks. I found a new artist when I was looking for cyberpunk music and I wouldn't have found him before, had I not
Mhm.
been digging so hard and maybe he hadn't put music out before COVID and now he had time.
Mhm.
So I think there's a ton of people who are
Yeah.
making music now that weren't before and trying to get
Mhm.
it out there. And I just think it's fantastic. I think
Mhm.
and not just a drum and bass level, but just from our creative standpoint, I think adults and I don't know if it's like all adults or if it's just like American culture, but I think people lose that creativity as they get older. Not that they lose it,
Mhm.
but it's pushed aside, it's repressed, it's pushed down, it's put into the corner of your brain because you're working at your job, you're paying your bills, you're
Mhm.
taking care of your kids. And I think it makes us unhappy. It gives us anxiety. You have to have some sort of creative outlet. You have to have
Yeah.
something that you're
Yeah.
doing for you that speaks to you. And so I think
Yes.
it's absolutely beautiful that people are now spending more time creating, whether that be music or just working on house projects or woodworking or whatever. So yeah,
Right.
I definitely think we're gonna see a lot more producers and self-publishing is huge now. I mean the big record labels. I mean, people are
Yeah.
just putting out their own labels, putting out their own work and yeah, if you go dig for it, you will find you could spend all day, you could spend 12 hours a day and probably never come across one single artist that you know, and it's all great, amazing music.
Maybe that is Bandcamp's purpose in the lack of a really solid search feature. I was
Yeah,
talking to someone about that.
I
Maybe
know,
that
I
is
wanna
their
search by
purpose.
genre.
Right. I want to search by genre. I want a
Yeah.
nice list of things. I don't want the list to disappear when I click on something. But maybe that is their point, that they want us to sort of wade through and find things that we might not have stumbled across otherwise.
Mhm.
Um, okay, so let's talk just some specific things. So, um, what advice would you give to an aspiring producer or like a brand new producer? And I'm a little selfish asking this, as
I've heard
sort of
that
brand new, but
I have to comment on chat, Meta Pattern was saying the next new genre is probably gonna be neurodio. Yeah, I think John Tetley with his Rocky Top, is he gonna be the godfather of the new rodeo? Country core. Oh, country core. I was telling Lexi, visiting these towns, I really wanna make a track that's specific to every single area I visit, and bluegrass
Mhm.
is huge around here. So I'm like,
Yes.
before I move out of Asheville, I gotta do some type of track with, like, using bluegrass or some fiddles or something. Oh my gosh, my hair just went crazy. Blah. Hair
my
attack. Oh,
my
Lord.
lights turned out because I have them on a timer. So yeah,
Oh,
I had
no.
to fix that real quick. First stream, yay! Um,
Okay,
uh,
yes,
so
next drum and bass, country core, okay.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
new aspiring producer or
yeah.
DJ?
Producers,
Producing?
producers. Yeah.
Um, I think the biggest thing for me, and the biggest challenges I had when I started out is you have to be patient with yourself. You
Mm,
have to be. Because not only are you trying to learn your creative strengths, you're also
mhm,
trying to learn software. So
yeah,
you're facing not one, but two hurdles. Like, who am I as a producer? What
mhm,
tunes do I want to make? How do I formulate them just creatively in my brain, which is difficult when you're first
right,
starting? But then
right,
also, you're learning completely new software and a completely new way to write. So I
right,
think I would get super frustrated at the beginning because I just
mhm,
couldn't write something. I couldn't
right,
make it happen. I couldn't do the
right,
thing I wanted to do.
right,
And you just have to realize that, like the first track you make, it's going to be as good as it can be for that moment
mhm,
in time.
right,
And literally every single time I go in the studio and I either work on an older track or I start a new one,
mhm,
there's something new in it. There's something
right,
new I've learned. Like, the
mhm,
knowledge that I have now when I'm writing tracks, the knowledge I had when I released them 2 years ago is
mhm,
drastically different. I mean, if I
yeah,
were to take a look at the stems of, like, my first single, I'd probably be like, "What the heck was I doing?" I'd probably, like, totally rewrite it, but it's fine. I mean, the song
yeah,
came out, I'm still happy with it,
mhm,
it's
mhm,
different than the songs I'm releasing now, but you just have
mhm,
to understand and be like,
mhm,
"That's okay. Something that I'm gonna write 5 years from now is gonna sound different than what I wrote 5
mhm,
years previously," and it's a
yeah,
learning process. I mean,
yeah,
Ableton is such a huge program, and it's just like Photoshop or Illustrator or DaVinci Resolve. You're not gonna be a master of it until you've been using it for, like, 25 years. Like,
right,
even then, there's new stuff to learn because new versions have come
right,
out. So there's
right,
always gonna be something new you can add to your track. There's always gonna be
right,
something you're gonna learn, and so you can't, like we were talking about, the perfectionism, like
yes,
self-procrastination, getting in your own way type of thing. So you
yes,
can't
yes,
be like, "Well," because for my thing, I'm familiar with writing keyboards and synths, and so I
mhm,
could lay down my synths. But my goal was I want to do every single song from scratch. I don't want to use any samples, but I
right,
still use drum samples. But
right,
I love, like, like Atomic Dog and T Power and Dillinger.
mm,
I hear their drums and their drum rinses, and I'm like, oh my god, how can I ever do that? So I had to accept that that's going to take a few years. That's going to take a
right,
lot of practice to get to that point. So for right now,
right,
when I wrote my first track, it's just a standard drum loop. Didn't do that
mhm,
much to it. Maybe did something a little different on the 16th and the 30-second count, but other
right,
than that, it had to be simple, and I just had to
mhm,
accept that.
mhm, mhm,
Do some complications with some other things,
yes,
um, and
yes,
I did use a lot of samples in my past Skiff track, which was actually the first one I wrote. But now to the point where I'm able to write from scratch completely every single part of my music except the drums. But
yeah,
I've been getting better at taking a few different drum loops and editing and chopping them up myself. So
yep,
that's like the
yep,
first step. I'm doing more chopping with them now
yeah,
to create my own patterns. But
mhm,
yeah, you totally have to be patient. You just
yeah,
have to be patient.
yeah,
And it's amazing if you can find some close people to you that you can bounce ideas off of.
yes,
I know Airstrike and Clear A1. If I'm working on something, I can send it to them, be like, "Hey, like, how's this sound? What do you think about it?" So that's super
mhm,
helpful in the beginning. Like, find some artists that you really respect and have tunes,
mhm,
that are in the same vein that you want to write, and and
mhm,
also that they're gonna give you a good critique. Like, you don't want lip
yes,
service. You don't just wanna be saying this stuff out there and everyone tells you it's great. You're like, "Well, no, it can't be great. It's
right,
the first one I wrote, like, give me some critiques here." And I
yes,
remember I think it was when no, it wasn't that. I was working on another track and I sent it to Airstrike, and his response was, "That didn't challenge me." I'm like, "Goblet
ooh, oh,
thrown down."
that's like when your dad says, "I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed."
Right, yeah, he didn't seem disappointed, he was encouraging that way, but
Yes, yes,
"You know what? That bass line just, like, was really making it sleepy for me, like, you should really probably
mhm,
switch it up and blah, blah, blah," and
yeah,
I'm like, it was an amazing critique, and he was like, "I'm
yeah,
sorry, was that, like, too forward?" I'm like, "No, dude, that's, like, exactly, like, the type of critique I wanted, like, real shit,"
yeah,
And I
yeah,
actually learned how to properly take critiques in art school. When I went
Mhm.
to Ringling, we would have, after a project, we would all get together as a class, and every person would present their project, and we'd have a
Mhm.
giant critique. It wasn't
Mhm.
it wasn't a show and tell. It wasn't like, "Oh, look at my painting I made, and this is why I did it. Thanks. Okay, see you later." No, we'd be like, "Oh,
Right.
here's why I did it," and people would be like, they would question it. They would critique
Mhm.
it because we're
Mhm.
learning and we're looking to improve, and you had to put your ego aside. You cannot
Yeah.
have any ego during those critiques.
Yeah.
You have to be open to listen to what other people are saying and suggesting, and be willing to, maybe you won't act on some of the things I said, but listen to what they're saying, accept it, take it in, think about it. And
Right.
so I do that a lot. There's a track
Right.
I just wrote, and I wanted it to sort of be like a light roller that would, like,
Mhm.
go into, like, an amen track at the end for the climax, and I
Mhm.
played it for A1, and he's like, "You know what? That amen needs to come in sooner. I think you should totally
Mhm.
do it, like, in this section also." So I'm like,
Mhm.
"You know what? You're right." So the amen went from being, like,
Yeah.
1/3 of the track to 2/3 of the track, and
Right.
then I did that. I'm like, "Okay, let me send it to Mikey." And so I sent it to
Mhm.
Mikey, and he's like, and he had no clue what A1 had said. He hadn't heard the first round. He
Mhm.
just heard it after we had put the amen in, like, 2/3 of it. And he's
Mhm.
listening to me, he's like, "You know what?" He's like, "I think the amen needs to come in sooner." And so the track now has, like, it's now an amen track, it's not an amen roller,
Yeah.
and because,
Yeah.
and it wasn't, I didn't do it just 'cause, like, they mentioned that, but I'm like,
Yeah.
I did it, and I listened to the track with their suggestions, and I'm like,
Mhm.
you know what? Yeah. Yeah, they're
Mhm.
absolutely right, and again, that was that this isn't how I wanted the track to sound when I started out, but
Mhm.
allowing it to evolve and grow on its own, and being,
Mhm.
accepting of other people's ideas and suggestions, and now I love it. It's great.
Yeah.
I'm still working on it, but yeah, I'm very
Yeah.
excited.
Yeah, let's just big up Mike Airstrike for a second because this tune that I posted it on your Discord. Some other people have heard it. Um, I thought it was done like 3 weeks ago. My whole goal had been to like recreate and finish a track I had started 20 years ago. And I basically recreated the track. I changed a couple of things because, I was like, yeah, that doesn't really fit. But I wasn't excited by it, but I was like, it's done. I can move on now. And then
Mm,
Mike listened to it and gave me he took the time to give such specific and detailed critique and explain why he was saying those things.
yeah.
I was ready to be done with that track until I read his critique. And his critique made me go, well, it was inspiring. It was a critique, but it was inspiring. It was
Mm,
like, oh yeah, you know what? I thought about that, but I didn't trust my gut. And, or wow, this could really open up something, there. And that, if you're in the frame of mind for it, which I think if you're going to be an artist, you should be, critique can, it's not that you change things because someone else told you to do it, but it can teach you how it can teach you new ways to look
oh,
at
yeah, I
things.
mean, it's the whole thing of the collective hive mind.
Yeah.
What's better than one brain and one perspective? Well, two
Right.
perspectives and three
Right.
perspectives. And so, as an artist, I see other people's ideas as my artist palette.
Hmm.
I may have only 30 colors, but this person has 50 colors. Well, let's join them together. And now I have 80 colors that I'm working with. So, yeah. And then, as the artist, then we choose, well, which suggestion am I going to use, and how am I going
Right.
to integrate it? And that's where, like,
Right.
your personal flavor comes into it. But yeah,
Right.
being able to bounce some tracks off of people, and if you're super stuck on a track, like, there was a track that I totally got stuck on, absolutely, like, I kept on coming back to it session after session after session, and I'm like,
Hmm.
you have to recognize when the track, for whatever reason, just isn't going anywhere. And at
Hmm.
that point, the option was completely scratch it, or what am I going to do? Because there were some samples in there I really liked. It had some good bits, right? But for whatever
Hmm.
reason, I was just having a block with it. And
Right.
so I turned to A1, and I'm just like, you want to do a collab? I'm like, I'm handing this over to you. I am done with it. I can't look at it anymore. I just keep on fussing with it, and it's not going anywhere. Here's the
Hmm.
stems. What can you do with it? And he did something totally different with it. Wasn't at all how I intended it to sound, but it's great. and we'll be releasing it next year. So at a
Nice,
point too,
nice.
you have to learn when you're just totally spinning your wheels, and like I said before,
Mhm,
there's another track that I was working on, and I kept on not getting anywhere, and after, like, the 3rd like, probably the 2nd session where I'm spending hours fiddling with stuff, I'm not liking it,
mhm.
I stripped it all out. I took out, like,
Right.
every single track that just I wasn't happy with or wasn't working on, and I left just
Mhm.
one single track that I liked out of all this hours I had done and rebuilt it, you know?
Wow, wow. Yeah, yeah. Having spent a little time in Ableton, I know what that means to take the tracks all the way down to 1. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, that
that's a
that
full restart, basically.
that was an extreme case that usually doesn't happen, but I think especially when you're starting, we may have these ideas and maybe there was just, one track would be better in a different song. Like, there was one
Mhm,
section of the song that I really liked, but I'm like, "You know what? I'm gonna use that as a base for another track, and I'm gonna
mhm,
just keep this one in this track. I'm gonna take the good bits, but I don't
mhm.
think this one's gonna go in this one. It's gotta go
Right,
in this direction." But,
right.
being able to also admit to yourself this just isn't working. And for me, I know when it's not working because I'm very unsatisfied at the end of every session.
Mhm,
It's like
mhm.
I get excited like on the opposite end when something works, like when lay down like a sound or a synth sound or a drum sample, like A1 will tell you, he'll hear me laughing. I'm like, "Oh my god." I'll scream, I'll get excited, I'll get chills, like I smile, I get happy. I'll go in there and I'm
Yeah,
like, oh, like, "Oh my god, you gotta listen to this. Oh my god." So,
yeah.
when I get excited like that, like, I know some magic is happening,
Yes,
but if I'm just, like,
yes.
sitting around and I'm like, "I've fussed with this track for 5 hours and I still hate it. What's happening?" I'm like, "Okay,
Yeah,
it's not working. It's not working. Start
yeah,
over."
yeah. I knew mine was close to being done when I was listening to it, and I started moving, and I was like, "Okay, that's a big difference from the last time."
Yeah.
Um, yeah. One of the things too that came up for me was from critique was, have you heard of the expression "kill your darlings"? You
Mm-mm.
probably have. So
No.
I forget who said it, but it was an author, and he was talking about writing, and he was talking about that sometimes you have to be prepared for your story or your writing to go where you want it to go or to go where it needs to go. To uh, you have to be willing to cut things out that you love. You have to be willing to do that to change it. So he said, kill your darlings. And I realized
Mm.
after that critique, there was this one sample that I really loved, but it didn't work. And
Yeah.
I didn't I didn't listen closely enough because I really loved it. And I think that what you were saying before just really resonated, for that with me, that you may have a great bit, but you might need to save it for another time.
And that's so true, and, I have a good story about that. So,
Yeah.
um, when I was submitting a track to repertoire, um oh gosh, where should I start with this story? There's, like, multiple parts to the story. Okay, let me just talk about the part talking about changing things. So there okay,
Yes. Yes.
my brain is, like, pinging all over. So I'd sent them the track,
Mhm.
and I knew I wanted some vocals on it, and I wanted my vocals on it, not singing,
Yeah.
but more just, like, spoken word, a couple, like, notes here and there. I'm not a great singer, but I can get 1 or 2 notes out and affect them
Yeah.
and whatever. It's not like a vocal piece, it's just another texture in the track.
Right.
And so I was really dead set, like, "I'm gonna put this release out. I want my voice to be on it because that's also been a goal of mine to get
Mhm.
more, like, vocally involved in my pieces,
Mhm.
and I sent it to them, and they're like, "We love it, however, the vocal is just not really working for us." They're like, "We totally understand if this is your track, and we
Mhm.
respect that, it's not that there's anything wrong with it, and if you don't wanna change it, cool. If you have
Mhm.
another track for us, we'll gladly hear it, but if maybe you just wanna swap out that vocal for something else," and I'm like,
Mhm.
"Cool, yeah, like, no problem," like, and so I still used my own voice, but I went, like, a
Mhm.
totally different track. Like,
Mhm.
before, like, there were actually, like, words you could hear, it was a lot more
Mhm.
spoken, and I went instead more with, like, you can barely hear the words, I'm singing them, it's just a different quality to it. They loved it, and that's what ended up getting put on the thing, but yeah, like and the vocal part of the track is what made this song for me, like, it had,
Mhm.
like, an emotional meaning to it, the name of its original name had to do with the vocal thing, so to me, that was such, like, a linchpin of this song that I wanted to get out there. It was like a memorial song for my parrot,
Oh,
and they were
yeah,
just
yeah,
like, but I had to recognize that I was so emotionally tied to it, and so I wasn't realizing that as I was forcing it because it's something I emotionally want to do, but it wasn't
mhm,
necessarily the best thing for the track, and I'm
right,
so
right,
glad they said that and gave me the option of resubmitting the track and allowed
yeah,
me to do it. They weren't like,
right,
"No, no, no, take this track, take this vocal out." They're like, "No, we understand, like, if you wanna
right,
release a track like that, that's your piece of artwork, but if
right,
you wanna
right,
experiment and maybe put in a different vocal and we can hear it," I'm
mhm,
like, "You know what? You got it." So I'm like,
yeah,
That's not gonna be the emotional track I want to make. I'll have to save
right,
that for another one." But
right,
yeah,
right.
sometimes that's how it goes.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, wow, we spent a lot of time on that, so I hope some of you are aspiring producers because, that was fully selfish of me. I got a lot out of that conversation, so,
Yeah, be patient.
so
Patient. Don't
right.
get mad at yourself. Very patient.
Yeah, yeah, right? Like, um, again, if you're not patient with yourself and you're stuck in this perfectionism, you'll just you'll quit too early, or you'll never let anyone hear your stuff, which means you'll
Mhm.
never get critique to make you better, or the
Yeah.
enjoyment, or the just pleasure of someone else going, hey, that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
um
it is, I've played music before, I've obviously been in musical performances and theater and all those things, but when I did my first single, that was the first time that something that is my artwork and my music is now out there in the world. And it's
right,
not in my close little circle of friends or
yeah,
like my Twitch
yeah,
stream. And there was that bit of nervousness, like, wow, I'm putting this out there and it's going to be
mhm,
open for critique and haters and
mhm,
everything, but not everyone's going to like everything. I know we always
right,
say it, but
right,
it's a
right,
different thing when it's actually your work, that's out there.
yeah,
Um, so it was a little scary about like,
mhm.
this whole thing, oh, I want to release music and it's actually released and I'm like, oh wow, like do I really want it that exposed?
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
it's like taking your heart out of your chest and going, please don't stomp on it,
Yeah,
like,
I know, like, I like this thing, like, I've gotten positive feedback from my close friends. I know they're not just, like, blowing smoke up my skirt, but, like, oh my
yeah,
god, what if I put it out there and, like, how these, like, actors get, like, these horrible movie reviews or, like, the theater
right.
critics, and they're
Ugh,
like, "Oh my god, this person has no music making this, and there's no
mhm,
business making it," like, oh my
right,
god, what if I get but you know what? You do have to build up a thick skin and you do have
mhm,
to put your proverbial hater blockers on. You really
right,
do. Because if
right,
if this track is making me happy and it's fulfilling my soul, and there's at
right,
least one other person that is also it's fulfilling their soul too,
right,
that's all that matters. That's all that
right,
matters. You can have
right.
10,000 people that absolutely effing hate it, but if one person is getting that solace that you had while writing it, like, that's all that matters.
Yeah, yeah, well, and, uh, uh, there are always gonna be people out there that cannot understand the difference between, "I don't like this," and "This is garbage." Like,
Right.
there are always gonna be people out there that can't understand the difference between that, and I think anyone as an artist has to be prepared for that, and just keep that in mind.
Mhm.
Um, you know, I think I was certainly like that in my 20s when I was DJing. I thought I knew everything, and if I didn't like it, then it was total crap. Thank God my tastes have matured and I've branched out
Yeah.
into other things, and I'm much more well-rounded now in my musical tastes, which is much more enjoyable than being a bitter, miserable junglist.
Yeah. There's a
Yeah.
world out there.
Exactly, exactly. So I can't believe it, but it's 8:48 right now. This has been amazing, but before I don't wanna stop, but I want to make sure we cover a couple of
Oh,
things. So
shoot. I saw a question. Man Lake Deep's
oh,
got a
okay,
question.
no, no, let's do you know what he did? It was a really good question. Where do you see yourself in 3 years? Was that the one that you saw?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do that one.
So in 3 years, okay, so we should definitely the bus will be done, and we
Mhm.
should be on the road. So definitely in 3 years, I see us somewhere in the country. I don't know what state that will be in, but we're gonna be
Right.
landing the bus somewhere. Um, I most likely will not have my corporate job anymore. We're really gearing up to try to not only pare down our expenses, but grow
Mhm.
our channel even more. So
Mhm.
I will have the ability to quit the day job, not because I don't like it, not because it's not a good job, but because I've never been able to focus on my art full time in my life ever. So I
Yeah.
have all these ideas that I've had for 20 years that I've
Mhm.
never been able to experiment with. You know, I love doing stained glass. I wanna do the jewelry
Mhm.
line. I wanna do more, like, artwork. I wanna do the t-shirt line. I wanna do painting, like and I finally am like, even if I end up going back to a corporate job, that's fine, but I have to take that leap and just do it at least one time in my life and say, "I'm
Right.
going to focus on something that I love, that I'm passionate about. I'm gonna give it a go, and we'll see what happens."
Yeah.
So in 3 years, yeah, I definitely don't yeah, I'm hoping to not be at my job in 3 years and living in the bus and working on our off-grid home and working at animal sanctuaries and making music and selling artwork and yeah. That's the
Awesome.
goal.
Awesome. Okay, so speaking of animals, I know that you guys, you and A1 are doing a fundraiser
Mhm.
for an animal sanctuary. I'm going to put up the info in the chat, but can you tell us a little bit about this, the fundraising that you're doing and the group where the funds are going?
Yeah. So we like to do charity streams throughout the year. You know, for the Martin Luther King Day, we did a stream for the King Foundation, and then I think we did an animal charity maybe earlier this year. We have the Zine Fest that Tatchet does for the WWF. But we found that we started every Thanksgiving, we've been doing adopt a turkey. So we
Hmm.
rescue a bunch of turkeys instead of killing them and eating them. But this particular year, Thanksgiving coincided with the Rowdy Girl Sanctuary's first ever summit for their rancher advocacy program. And what I find particularly interesting about this program is yes, Rowdy Girl Sanctuary are now vegan. They're former Texas cattle ranchers. They now have a sanctuary
Wow.
where they rescue animals. They have a veganic farm that they're growing. But being farmers themselves and facing the issues that farmers are facing today, they're like,
Hmm.
we need to let other farmers know there's an option. Um,
Hmm.
you know, there's hardly any small farms left. Industrial agriculture and the big corporations have taken over about like I think it's like
Hmm.
96% of farms or 95% are all owned by corporations now. And not only is this very difficult for the farmers, they basically put them like an indentured servitude. You know, they own the land, but all the gear and the equipment and everything is leased from the corporation
Hmm.
and they're
Hmm.
paid. I mean, this one farmer who they're transitioning their farm to a mushroom farm were saying how they would get like 5 cents a pound for their chickens. And then he goes see two of them sold for like $12 at Whole Foods. It's like they're
Wow.
not seeing that money. Meanwhile, the Tyson CEO got a $23 million bonus, and the farmers are
Hmm.
struggling, being paid pennies a
Hmm.
pound for the product they're raising.
Right.
So not only is there a lot of financial difficulties for farmers these days, but when you really start talking to the farmers more, you start realizing that there's a lot of compassion that they have to stuff, that they have to set
Mm.
aside, that they have to deny themselves. For instance, most farmers, or at least all that I've talked to admit, they do not eat their own cows. They're like, I
Mhm.
can't eat my own cow. They live
Mhm.
on a farm, they have cattle everywhere, but they're like, "We just can't do it." And it's also the
Mhm.
reason farmers don't name their cows. You know,
Mhm.
they go through all these things with their psyche to trick themselves into not, caring for these animals and justifying that, "Oh, well, I'm gonna give 'em a good life, and they only have 1 bad
Mhm.
day," as one farmer said. They only have 1 bad day.
Right, right.
They never have to have a bad day.
Mhm.
So, you'll find a lot of farmers will have depression, they'll have alcoholism, there'll be drug abuse. Same for slaughterhouse workers.
Mhm.
It's a very terrible job. There's lots of abuse going on. There's lots of abuse of immigrant and illegal aliens who work there.
Mhm.
So they're really trying to start a program that's going to give farmers an option to keep their farm who
Mhm.
it's some of them it's been in their, lives for generations, but say,
Mhm.
"Hey, instead of, having to raise animals as a product when they're
Mhm.
living beings, let's look at other ways we can use your land, but still, grow food for people."
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
whether, their farm is going to be suitable to change it to, veganic farming situation, or in the future looking towards doing solar farms or wind farms. But,
Mhm.
let's look at a way and looking towards the future and sustainability of how to get a lot of these farmers out of situations that they don't want to be in either. And
Mhm.
lots of times, with veganism and activism, you'll see vegan people and farmers fighting, and so I don't want them to have to fight. This is something that we can work towards together.
Mhm.
It's just, and it's so surprising to me to hear so many farmers that talk about the same things, that they don't like sending their animals to slaughter. They don't like it, but it's just it's socially accepted, it's indoctrinated
Right.
into us, and they just feel there's no other option for them, and in many
Yeah.
cases, they're slapped into these industrial
Mhm.
farms by the corporations who treat
Mhm.
them like crap, as well as the
Well,
animals.
yeah.
So
Well, I'm all about giving people options and corporations not owning every single thing that we depend on.
yeah,
So I'm really excited about the fundraiser. I'm going to put the information up here again. I love that you guys are. I love that you guys are using your stream to do that, and I'm hearing more and more that that's happening across Twitch, and I just think that's. I think that's fantastic. But
yeah,
let's talk
charities
about your
are
social.
awesome on Twitch, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So let's talk about your socials real quick. I don't think I've put your Discord up, but Sensenet and A1 Voodoo have a fantastic Discord. So many different channels with so many, so
I think I
many
went a little
different
overboard with
things.
the channels.
Yeah. So many things to learn about though. So many specific things to ask questions about and things like that. I know everyone needs another Discord to be involved in, but that's their Discord. We have been putting up, and of course now I
Yeah,
can't
I tried
remember
to
all
do,
my
like
commands.
we have, like, a drum and bass room, you talk about drum and bass, we have a producer room, we have an other genre room to share anything you want, there's a vegan room, you can ask about veganism, there's recipes if you wanna share, there's a room about finances, because when we first started, we were working on our debt payoff plan, so there's a room that if you need help, like, getting out of debt, we'll pop in and help you out. Yeah, a whole Yes, yeah, a GIF room, just post, like, stupid funny GIFs, we love GIFs, memes and
In 2020, memes are saving lives. Okay, that's that's my
totally,
opinion.
I know, it's like my
That
smiles
is
for the day.
yeah, right. Please give me something. Give me anything. So yeah, I can't find my other commands for your web stuff, but I'm gonna do a shout out for you
Yeah, I know you
guys.
had my website that was pulling up,
Yes.
and honestly, my
Yes.
website is sort of like a, what's the word I'm out it's consolidated. It consolidates everything. So if you go to my website, you'll see each of the tracks that I have out there. You'll
Right.
see my Mixcloud, my SoundCloud, Discord. I'll be honest though, I don't really do much with Mixcloud and SoundCloud that
Yeah.
anymore. Now that I'm
Yeah.
on Twitch and we have Discord, it's pretty much Twitch and
Yeah.
Discord. I deleted my social medias like over a year ago,
Hmm.
knowing that that would not promote me as much, and it would
Right.
I wouldn't necessarily get out there, but I don't wanna be famous. I like having my privacy.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so, the fact that, I don't have 10,000 followers on Instagram is, like, perfectly fine with me. You know? I want this simple life, man. I just wanna be able to make art and be able to pay my bills. I don't care
Yes.
if that means we're living on, like, 15 grand a year, like, we're gonna make it work.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome. Holy crap. It's 8:58. So let me just thank everybody that came. First of all, I want to thank the folks that came over from Escape Velocity Official. It means a lot to me that you're here
Yes, thank
because
you,
it's my
crew.
first stream. It's just incredible, and I hope I get to know those of you that I don't know already. And I want to thank you, Sensenet, for coming on the show, for being willing to be the the proverbial guinea pig here. So
Yay.
I really, really appreciate that. And then everybody else that has helped me with this has offered me encouragement and advice and has sat here for all of this time. I love you guys. I love this community. And yeah, yeah. This was a great talk. This was a great talk. And I feel like I could have you on again and we could go for another 2 hours.
Oh my
So
gosh, I know there's still so much.
there's
I
so
need your
much to talk
what's
about.
your favorite jungle track before we go?
Okay, so this is so hard. Okay, so I'm just gonna mention one that I've been thinking about a lot lately. It's definitely one of my favorites, and it's Music is the Key. Why can't I remember? Foul Play. Foul Play's Music is
Oh,
the Key.
yeah.
And I also love the Omni Trio remix of it. And this is actually one of the few times in my life where I think the remix might be better than the
Sometimes,
original,
yeah.
except that the remix doesn't have as much of the vocal. And I really like the vocal. But yeah, the song is just all about how music can unite us, can bring us together, that it crosses all kinds of lines
Mhm.
and ideas that the world seeks to divide us with. And that feels really appropriate right now. It feels, especially in America, that feels really important right now to
Mhm.
find things that unite us rather than divide us. And I definitely think that's what we're seeing with the drum and bass community
Yeah,
here
and
on
that's
Twitch.
like we didn't even mention it, but I mean, the whole roots of drum and bass came from, social repression, and it was a way that bringing people together that were not getting along in the UK, and
Yeah,
I love the history of it. I love the social history of it. It's always been about inclusion and come as you are, and it's about the music, and wherever your background is, it's welcome because that's only gonna add to the music. Throw it into the mix, I love
right.
it.
Yeah, yeah. And actually, I've been like two things recently that I've been listening to. Um, People from the UK were talking about how the rave scene really did unite people across class and racial barriers for the first time that they had ever seen,
Yeah.
which was amazing. Whoa, sorry. Okay, I'm trying to find someone to raid. Anybody in the chat? Do you have like a particular person that we should raid? Um, I'm seeing Pacific DMB, D-List, um, Pixel Pusher, um, raid myself and stay on 2 more hours. No, my feet hurt. I'm at my standing desk. I
I'm
didn't
off
get a
work
stool.
tomorrow, I'll keep
Yeah,
going.
yeah, I actually
You guys
am
don't
going
have to
to
hear me
work.
ramble anymore.
So, okay, so I'm just going to pick, and I'm going to say that we're going to go see Pacific Beats, so or Pacific DMB. Um,
Oh, I haven't checked them out yet.
oh
Cool.
man,
I have
first of
not seen
all,
them
uh,
stream yet.
yeah, amazing liquid, and his view of Vancouver makes me so jealous every
Mm.
single time. So that's who we're going to raid again. I love you guys so much. I thank you. And next week, From the Annex is going to be on. Oh yeah,
Yay.
I'm also doing a uh, I'm gonna do a show Saturday morning, like early Saturday morning. I just don't know when. Um, and I had a poll, but I don't have the link ready because I was not paying attention. So if anybody on one of the 6 million discords that I'm on wants to give me any suggestions about what we could do, one of the things I was thinking you guys could do is teach my boomer self what all these subgenres of drum and bass are because I have been
Oh,
gone too long and I do not get it. So
yeah, that could be a very good topic.
yes, yes. So I mean, we could try that. We could try just and ask me anything, or we could just wing it. That's cool too. So yeah, let's go right into Pacific DMB. Be sure and big him up. If you're not following him, I highly recommend him as a follow. And why isn't the start raid button working? Stream manager,
Oh,
you're
it
killing
looks like
me.
it's working. I see the raid
Oh,
command on
okay.
chat. I
Okay,
see
there it
it.
goes.
I see the
Excellent.
timer.
Excellent.
And
Ah,
big shout out to the Escape Velocity crew. This was episode
yes.
002 of the Sensenet Detour field trip to Curly Roller Stream.
Wicked. Wicked. Thank you for sharing that with us. I'm so happy to be a part of that.
Yeah, I'm glad it all worked out. This is great. It was
Yeah,
great.
yeah.
The stream did not drop once. Yes.
I know, right?
Success.
My poor sad camera seemed to handle everything, so,
Thank you
that's good.
all. V
Yeah.
reacting
Thanks,
and being great
everybody.
guys. Charlie,
Big love.
Jamie
Uh,
A1, man like deeps. Rude boy.
VSpec VSpec, you're up so late. All of you guys in the UK that are up so
Hi,
late.
Carla.
Bless you.
Oh, there's
Bless
Billy.
you.
Hey, 916.
Awesome. Awesome. I think
All
I'm
right, guys.
frozen over here, but okay, everybody.
See you guys Thursday.
Something went wrong.
Oh, it's
Whatever.
about to raid. It's like 5 seconds
Yes.
away.
All right. Yes, Deeps. I did it. I did it. First one's done. Now let's see what happens. Big love. You guys are the best part of 2020. This is weird having to wait.
Okay, yeah. No.
Did it go?
Now you just have to make sure you hit stop streaming on your side.
Okay,
So it's
yeah.
not still
So
on your channel. They're rated, but the question is, are we off?